Theclon had seen war. He'd watched suns collapse under orbital bombardments, planets turned to ash by fleets too vast to count. But nothing prepared him for what he saw that day in the Galactic Academy dining hall. At first, she looked harmless, fragile even. A human girl, small-framed, soft-skinned, eyes too quiet for a place crawling with apex predators from 100 worlds. She sat alone, spooning bland protein paste into her mouth as if she hadn't noticed the 5 Vorthak warriors circling like carrion beasts. They mocked her, towered over her, threatened her. She never stood. She never raised her voice. She simply turned her head slightly, whispered something too low for even Theclon's enhanced hearing to catch. And then, before any of them realized, they were on the floor. One choking, one screaming, 2 frozen in fear. And the leader, neck snapped clean, lifeless eyes staring at the ceiling. She didn't gloat, didn't even blink. Maya Blackwood resumed her meal, as if crushing a Vorthak spine was no more effort than flicking a crumb from her tray. Deathworlders, Theclon thought, shivering. By the stars, what have we invited among us? The calm before the storm. Theclon hated the Galactic Academy dining hall. It stank of too many species packed into too little space. The air thick with pheromones and oils from creatures whose biology he couldn't even begin to guess. The room buzzed with 1,000 languages, clicks, growls, sibilant hisses. Yet even among the chaos, his trained eyes could pick out patterns. Predators sat where they could see every entrance. Prey clumped in tight circles, heads down. And then there were the apexes, Vorthaks, Dracari Ulvins, all 6-limbed and armored in flesh or chitin, radiating casual violence. And then there was the human. She didn't look like she belonged here. Small, fragile, skin so thin it seemed almost translucent under the harsh ceiling lights. She sat at the edge of the hall, alone at a table designed for 10, methodically eating her ration pack like a machine. Theclon had read the reports. Earth, class, 12 Deathworld, native species, human, survival traits, adaptive biology, extreme aggression when provoked. But looking at her now, Maya Blackwood seemed laughably non-threatening. Soft skin, a guttural voice growled nearby. Theclon's eyes flicked left. 5 Vorthak warriors approached, 8-foot slabs of muscle and armor, spiked crests brushing the light fixtures. They spread out, surrounding the girl like a hunting pack. "Does your little Deathworld send hatchlings to fight?" Their leader sneered, slamming a tray onto her table hard enough to rattle utensils. Maya didn't flinch. She lifted another spoonful of paste to her lips, chewed slowly, and swallowed. No fear, no anger, no reaction at all. "Maybe she doesn't understand us." One of them chuckled darkly. "Oh, I understand," Maya said softly. Her voice was barely audible over the din of the hall. Theclon shifted uncomfortably. There was something wrong with her tone. Not fear, not submission. It was bored. The Vorthak leader leaned in closer, his massive hand descending toward her shoulder. "You're in our seat, Softskin. Move, before we move you." Theclon exhaled through clenched mandibles. Foolish. He'd seen Vorthaks tear apart armored Dracari with bare hands. Whatever this human was, she wouldn't survive. Snap. The sound was quiet, almost delicate, like a twig breaking underfoot. The Vorthak leader's body hit the floor with a dull thud. Lifeless, his neck twisted at an impossible angle. The entire hall froze. Maya Blackwood didn't look up. She didn't stop eating. She simply whispered, "You don't want to do that." And Theclon, hardened veteran of 1,000 battles, felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Fear. Theclon hated the Galactic Academy dining hall. It wasn't the noise, though the din of 100 alien tongues grated against his sensitive auditory nodes. Nor was it the smell. an acrid blend of pheromones, oils, and cooking fumes that clung to the air like a sentient miasma. It wasn't even the constant motion, limbs of every imaginable configuration brushing too close as students jostled for seats or queued for the synth rations. It was the pattern, or rather, the lack of one. Theklan had spent 40 cycles as a tactical analyst in the Vayari fleet. He was trained to read environments the way others read books, who held power, who feared whom, which predators controlled the room. Even here, far from any battlefield, he could see it. Vortax gathered in clusters near the center, taking the high-backed seats where their massive frames could loom over others. Drakari slithered around the perimeters, their scaled tails coiled protectively under their tables. The smaller prey species, Chiron, Valari, Zix, clumped together in tight knots, speaking in hushed tones and keeping their eyes down. And then there was her, the human. She didn't fit any pattern. Maya Blackwood sat alone at a corner table, designed for 10 but occupied only by her slight frame. Her back was straight, her posture perfect, not in the rigid way of a nervous cadet, but in the relaxed stillness of someone who didn't need to shift or fidget. She was eating, slowly, methodically, lifting each spoonful of bland protein paste to her mouth as though it were part of some ritual. Her expression was unreadable, not tense, not fearful, not anything. Theklan's compound eyes narrowed. He'd read her file, of course. Species, human. Origin, Earth, class, 12 Deathworld. Physical traits, bipedal mammal, negligible natural armor, low mass-to-strength ratio. Threat level, moderate in groups. Notable, unpredictable behavioral patterns. A Deathworld species, yet so unimpressive. To the casual observer, she was fragile, soft-skinned, narrow-shouldered, utterly lacking the claws, fangs, or armored hide that were common among predator species. Theklan himself had once dismissed humans as a curiosity, until he saw their combat records, until he saw what a moderate threat species could do when provoked. The thought sent a faint vibration through his mandibles. Soft skin. A guttural voice rumbled nearby. Theklan's peripheral eyes shifted. 5 Vortax approached from the far end of the hall, 8 feet tall, plated in ridged carapace, their bodies rippling with dense muscle. Each bore the characteristic spiked cranial crest that marked them as warriors, their postures loose but predatory. The pack dynamic was obvious. 1 leader at the center, 2 on each flank. Their strides were casual, but their eyes glinted with the cruel amusement of apex predators scenting easy prey. Maya didn't react. She lifted another spoonful, 8, and set the utensil down neatly on the tray. Her gaze remained fixed on her meal. The leader slapped his tray onto her table with a crash that echoed across the hall. Utensils rattled, and a hush fell over the nearest clusters of students. Conversations faltered. Eyes darted toward the confrontation, then quickly away. "You're in our seat, Softskin," the leader growled in Galactic Common. His voice was like gravel underfoot. "Move, before we move you." Theklan watched, his secondary arms twitching in reflex. He'd seen Vortax rip the arms off Drakari for less. Even among the predator species, few challenged them. Surely this fragile human would. "I'm eating," Maya said softly. The words weren't defiant. They weren't fearful. They simply were, delivered in a tone of absolute neutrality, as though the Vortax leader's presence was as consequential as background static. A low chuckle rumbled through the Vortax pack. One leaned down, his maw splitting in a grin full of needle teeth. "Maybe she didn't understand," he said. "You want us to teach you, little Deathworld hatchling." Theklan felt the air shift. Subtle, but there. The temperature wasn't any different, yet the space around Maya seemed suddenly denser, tighter, like the moment before a plasma cannon discharged. The leader's massive hand descended toward her shoulder. Theclon almost rose from his seat, almost barked a warning, almost intervened, but his combat-honed instincts, sharpened over decades of war, stopped him. Something was wrong. Maya's hand moved, just slightly. It wasn't a flinch. It wasn't defensive. It was a slow, precise shift of her fingers as she set her spoon down and straightened her posture. And Theclon realized, with a cold weight settling in his chest, she wasn't afraid. She wasn't angry. She was waiting. The Vortac leader's hand hovered inches from the human's shoulder. His talons flexed lazily, the way predators toy with prey before the kill. Theclon tensed. Even at his distance, 4 tables away, he could see the size difference. Maya Blackwood's entire torso was narrower than the Vortac's forearm. One swipe of those claws would open her delicate flesh like wet paper, and yet she didn't flinch. Her head tilted slightly, a subtle shift that somehow felt deliberate. Measured, she spoke again, voice so soft that Theclon's auditory receptors barely caught it. "You don't want to do that." The Vortax laughed, a deep, guttural sound that echoed in the high-ceilinged hall. "Oh, I think we do, Softskin," the leader sneered. His claws twitched, eager. "Maybe we'll teach you your place." Theclon's mandibles flexed uneasily. Something was wrong. He wasn't sure how he knew it. Some flicker in the human's posture, the slight tension in her shoulders, the stillness of her hands. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even defiance. It was awaiting predator's poise. The Vortac's hand closed the final distance. It never landed. The human's arm moved, not fast, not frantic, but in a single precise arc. Her hand snaked upward, fingers closing around the Vortac's massive wrist. There was no struggle, no resistance. She applied the tiniest torque and snap. The sound was soft, almost delicate, like a small branch breaking underfoot. Then came the thud. The Vortac leader's enormous frame hit the floor in a boneless heap. His neck bent at an impossible angle, crest spikes scraping the polished tiles. Lifeless eyes stared glassily at the ceiling. Silence. The entire hall froze. Conversations ceased midword. Utensils clattered forgotten to tables. Even the ambient hum of ventilation seemed to hold its breath. Maya Blackwood didn't move. She released the dead warrior's wrist and calmly picked up her spoon again. She dipped it into her protein paste as though nothing had happened. Theclon's blood chilled. His mind, honed by decades of tactical analysis, replayed what he'd just seen in 1,000 micro-moments. The human hadn't stood. She hadn't shifted her weight. She hadn't used any visible force. She'd simply ended him. The remaining 4 Vortacs stared in frozen shock. Their leader, the strongest among them, a decorated academy combatant, lay dead at the hands of a soft-skinned mammal who hadn't even bothered to rise. "Leave," Maya said softly, not looking up from her tray. "Or I'll assume you want to join him." Her tone wasn't angry, wasn't loud, but the words carried a weight that made Theclon's subdermal plates vibrate. One of the Vortacs snarled, breaking the paralysis. His claws flexed, his nostrils flaring with rage. "You'll die for that, little." Maya sighed. The Vortac lunged. She didn't. The moment he entered her reach, her hand flicked sideways like a casual gesture. Her fingers darted down, gripping his kneecap, and then there was a wet pop. The Vortac howled, collapsing as his leg folded backward unnaturally. He hit the floor beside his fallen leader, clutching his ruined joint. The 2 nearest Vortacs backed away, eyes wide, crest spikes flattening in a clear display of submission. The last one hesitated a second too long. Maya's gaze flicked up, just her eyes, not her head. That was enough. The 4th Vortac bolted. The others followed a heartbeat later, dragging their wounded packmate with them. The hall remained silent. Maya set down her spoon and wiped her mouth delicately with a napkin. Then she resumed eating as if nothing at all had transpired. Theklan forced himself to breathe. His carapace felt tight, his secondary arms twitching involuntarily. This was no accident, no lucky strike. This was training, discipline, efficiency. This was a predator hiding in prey's skin. By the stars, he thought, mandibles clacking nervously. We invited a Deathworlder into the den, and only now do we understand why that was a mistake. Silence clung to the dining hall like a suffocating fog. No one moved. No one spoke. Hundreds of eyes, compound, multifaceted, glowing, slit-pupiled, were fixed on one small, pale figure at the corner table. Maya Blackwood, the human. She sat as she had before, straight-backed, utterly composed. She spooned the last bite of her protein paste into her mouth and chewed slowly, as though nothing had happened, as though the body of a Vorthak warrior didn't lie twisted and lifeless at her feet. Theklan's mandibles clicked reflexively. He could feel it now, an almost tangible pressure in the air. Not from her, from the others, the fear rolling off them in waves. Soft, frantic whispers rippled through the room. Did you see? She didn't even stand up. Deathworlders, they're all like that. No claws, no armor. How did she do that? A Chiron student, delicate, insectoid, clutched her tray tight enough to crack it. They put that in our academy, she hissed to her companion. Theklan forced himself to remain still, but inside his mind was chaos. This wasn't just about one dead Vorthak. It was about everything he thought he knew. He'd studied humans, knew the statistics, knew their world. Earth, gravity slightly above galactic norm, atmosphere dense with toxins, fauna lethal, flora toxic, microbial life aggressive, a planet where predators never went extinct, where survival meant constant adaptation. He knew all that, but knowledge was nothing compared to seeing. That wasn't strength he'd witnessed. It wasn't speed. It was efficiency. Clinical, predatory efficiency. The kind of danger that didn't roar or threaten. It simply waited, then ended you before you realized. The doors hissed open. A squad of Academy security officers entered. 4 Dracari enforcers in black armor, plasma carbines at the ready. Their scaled tails lashed nervously as they surveyed the scene. "What happened here?" the lead officer demanded, his voice low but tense. No one answered. All eyes flicked to Maya. She didn't look up. She placed her spoon on the tray, folded her napkin with deliberate precision, and set it aside. Theklan felt his carapace tighten again. Even her smallest motions carried an unsettling weight. The officers advanced cautiously. One leveled his carbine. "Human, stand and place your hands where I can see them." Maya finally looked up. Her eyes, deep brown, utterly calm, met his. There was no hostility in them, no fear. "Why?" she asked simply. The Dracari officer hesitated. His scaled fingers tightened on the weapon, but his tail's erratic twitch betrayed unease. "You're under investigation for the death of Cadet Roveth," he said, but his tone lacked conviction. Maya's head tilted slightly. "He attacked me. I defended myself." The officer opened his mouth, then closed it again. His eyes flicked to Rovetha's crumpled form. Even he could see the truth. There were no defensive wounds on Maya. No sign of struggle. Only one precise, devastating injury. He was the aggressor, Theklan said suddenly. All eyes turned to him. He hadn't planned to speak, but the words slipped out unbidden. "I saw it," she warned him. He ignored her. The lead officer's crest flattened uneasily. He nodded, but didn't lower his weapon. "Stand down," he ordered his squad. Reluctantly, the carbines lowered. The tension in the air didn't dissipate. It simply shifted, like a predator circling unseen. "Cadet Blackwood," the officer said, "you'll need to file a formal statement." Maya rose gracefully. For the first time, the hall saw her full height, barely reaching the Dracarys' shoulder, yet somehow she seemed to fill the space around her. "I'll cooperate," she said. Her voice was calm, but Theclon could see it in the Dracarys' stance, in the twitching tails and two wide eyes. They didn't feel in control. They felt like prey. As Maya walked past, tray in hand, the students parted without a word, a corridor of fear. Theclon exhaled slowly. His mind replayed the moment over and over. The snap, the thud, the silence. This isn't just one human, he thought. This is what they all are. Deathworlders. The interrogation chamber was stark. Steel walls, a single table, 2 chairs. No windows. One overhead light cast long shadows across the floor. Maya Blackwood sat on one side, hands folded neatly in front of her. She looked ordinary. That, Theclon thought from behind the observation glass, was the most disturbing part. There was no hint of violence in her posture, no visible tension in her muscles, only quiet composure, as if she were sitting in a classroom, waiting for a lecture to begin. On the other side of the table sat Commander Vrask, a reptilian Ithri officer whose scales bore the deep scars of 100 battlefields. His voice, usually enough to cow even the fiercest cadets, was measured now, almost careful. "Cadet Blackwood," Vrask began, his slit pupil eyes fixed on her. "Do you understand why you're here?" "Yes, Commander." Her tone was calm. "You wish to investigate the incident in the dining hall." "Incident." Vrask's brow ridges rose. "A cadet lies dead. Another is hospitalized with a shattered leg. And you call it an incident." Maya didn't flinch. "It was self-defense. I issued 2 verbal warnings. Both were ignored." "She's not even defensive," murmured a voice in the observation room. Theclon recognized it as Lieutenant Corin, one of Vrask's aides. No guilt, no fear, just reporting facts. "Silence." Theclon snapped reflexively, though his own mandibles twitched with unease. Vrask leaned forward slightly. "Do you deny using lethal force?" "I don't deny it," Maya said simply. "I calculated the minimum necessary response." Cadet Rovith presented an imminent threat. His height, mass, and muscle density were approximately 6 times my own. Attempting to subdue him non-lethally would have placed me at risk. Vrask's clawed fingers drummed the tabletop. "And yet you subdued him without standing, without even appearing to exert effort." Maya tilted her head. "That was the minimum necessary effort." Theclon's secondary arms folded tightly across his thorax. Her words were not boastful. There was no pride in them, only a cold, terrifying honesty. "Commander," Maya continued, "you should already know the Earth classification report. Class, 12 Deathworld. Predation Index, 9.6. Toxicity Index, 7.8. Survival Index," she paused, "low. For any non-native species." "We know the reports," Vrask said sharply. "But we didn't expect one of your kind to treat fellow sapients the same way you would a feral predator." Maya's gaze didn't waver. "With respect, Commander, where I come from, failure to act decisively often results in death." In the observation room, another voice whispered, "She's not trained like a soldier. She's evolved like one." Vrask's tail flicked. "Are all humans like you?" Maya blinked slowly. "Define like me." "Capable of that." His talons twitched unconsciously toward his own neck. Maya didn't answer immediately. Every human is capable of violence, but not every human is capable of control. You're fortunate I have both. The silence that followed was palpable. Theclon felt his chest plates constrict. He'd heard of Deathworlders before, vague stories of creatures too dangerous to integrate into galactic society. But seeing one speaking so calmly about calculated lethality, it was different. Vrask exhaled heavily. For now, you're suspended from Academy activities, pending review. You'll remain confined to quarters. Do you understand?" "Yes, Commander." Vrask stood abruptly and left, his tail lashing. The observation room emptied quickly. Only Theclon lingered, eyes fixed on the human through the glass. Maya sat alone, perfectly still, waiting. Theclon shivered. He wasn't sure if it was the room's chill or the realization blooming in his mind. She's not the exception, he thought. She's the warning. The council chamber was vast, a dome of glass and steel orbiting the Academy planet. From here, stars blazed like cold fire, watching silently as representatives from a dozen worlds argued across a polished obsidian table. Theclon stood behind his commander's seat, mandibles tight with unease. Maya Blackwood sat alone at the far end of the chamber, unbound, unguarded. That, more than anything, set Theclon's plates crawling. She didn't need restraints. Everyone present understood why. Cadet Blackwood is a clear and present danger, snapped High Consul Tyrsch of the Vorthack delegation. His crest spikes were fully extended in agitation. She has demonstrated lethal capability disproportionate to any perceived threat. This Deathworlder must be returned to her homeworld immediately. Quarantine Earth. Enforce Protocol 9. Protocol 9, rumbled Ambassador Giarthok of the Drakari, his massive tail thumping. You'd have us treat all humans as hostile? Based on one incident. Incident. Tyrsch's voice cracked with incredulity. Rovith was a trained warrior. She didn't even stand to kill him. At the far end, Maya sipped from a glass of water. Calm. Silent. Theclon saw it again, that perfect stillness. Not the stillness of prey, but of a predator watching its surroundings. Calculating. Waiting. "We've all read the Earth dossier," murmured Minister Colleen, a Chiron with delicate, trembling antennae. "Class, 12 Deathworld. Apex predators. Microbial and macrobiotic hazards beyond galactic norms. Why were they ever admitted to the Academy?" "Because they're sapients," countered Giarthok, "and they've contributed to coalition science and trade." Contributed? Tyrsch spat. Or infiltrated? A hush fell as Maya finally spoke. "May I?" Her voice was soft, yet it carried across the chamber. All eyes turned to her. "You speak as if I am unique," she began. "As if Earth produces only one such individual every few generations." She set her glass down. The sound was quiet, yet it seemed deafening in the stillness. "You are mistaken." Theclon's mandibles clicked involuntarily. He could feel it, the shift in the room. "There are billions of us," Maya continued, "and every one of us evolved on a planet that tried, every single day, to kill us. We are the descendants of those who survived predators with teeth like swords. Weather that shattered mountains, diseases that wiped out entire civilizations." Her dark eyes swept the chamber. None met her gaze. "You think I'm dangerous because I killed one aggressor?" she asked softly. "Consider this." I held back. A collective shiver passed through the council. "Had I not," Maya said, her voice like ice over steel, "there would be no one left in that dining hall." The silence was absolute. Even Theclon's commander, battle-hardened Vrask, shifted uncomfortably. "Earth is not a threat," Maya concluded, "unless you make us one." Theclon felt it then. Not just fear, but a deeper understanding. A realization. This wasn't about one girl. This was about her species. Humans weren't dangerous because they wanted to be. They were dangerous because they had to be. It was in their bones, in their blood, in their history. A predator's patience, a survivor's cunning, a killer's efficiency. Maya stood slowly, her movement unhurried, graceful. "Decide what you will," she said. "Earth will endure, either way." And with that, she turned and walked toward the exit. The council members instinctively parted to let her pass. No one tried to stop her. No one dared. Theclon exhaled shakily as the doors hissed shut behind her. His mind echoed with one chilling truth. We invited Deathworlders into the galaxy, and now we'll never uninvite them.